Hello, and welcome back to part 2 of the Esther-Cinderella observation. So, where we left off, I was talking about a man has the tendency that he is attracted to a woman for not just her looks, but her mind. If she has a mind, thought processes of her own, that she intrigues him with the way that she thinks, then he's going to be more likely to be drawn to her than he would any other person. The way that she thinks, the way that she observes life, and this is why when you think about the story of Samson and Delilah, Delilah did not intrigue Samson because she was sexy. It was the fact that she listened, that she talked with him, and the things that she was saying that were intriguing him at the time. Okay? How she used her wording. Same thing with Ahab and Jezebel. Jezebel was the brains. Jezebel understood. Jezebel could control the situation and control Ahab with the way that she used her words. Why was the king in One Night with the King, ergo Esther, able to choose Esther without having sex with her? Because of her mind. Okay? This is going to become even more relevant as we move into this next part of Cinderella, that as Cinderella comes to the point when she makes the decision. Now, this is going to be where you jump around with Esther. Cinderella, after the stepsisters have gone, has made the decision that she's going to sing her song. She sings her swan song of how she wishes that she could meet the prince and all of this, and what the ball would look like and all of this type of stuff. What did Cinderella just do? She created a vision. When you create a vision, God provides the provision. She had a vision. She did not write it down, but she spoke the vision. What is speaking? Speaking it into existence. So Cinderella spoke into existence what she thought that the ball would look like. She spoke about how she thought the people would be dressed, how they would speak to one another, how she would interact with the prince if she had the opportunity to interact with the prince. And then she ended it with what would be considered a prayer. By getting on her knees, closing her eyes, she clasped her hands together, and she said, "I wish I could go to the ball," which to ours would be a prayer to go to the ball. And what happened? The fairy godmother showed up. For us, what the Lord will do is when He wants to provide you provision for a scenario in which you are desiring, He sends a person. I've been hearing this from one of the ministers I listen to. I hear from a couple of them. Actually, they all say that when God wants to bless your situation, He will send a person. In this, it was the fairy godmother. It was, and in certain scenarios, you could consider this person like a angelic messenger. This happens in reality too, where you will see people, they'll be in some type of bind, and right in the nick of time, the person will show up. and they'll either have the information they're seeking, the answer they're looking for. It's happened to me before. I've been out. I remember I went to a conference. On the third day of the conference, I had been in a consecration with the Lord, and a person came to me and she started to answer everything I'd been praying about. Verbal words with instructions. Now, with that being said, what happened? She made a prayer. The fairy godmother shows up and starts to encourage her in herself. She showed her her own identity, which she could not see because all she had ever heard was that she was common. And her godmother was telling her, you are not common, you are not average, you are spectacular. You just have to see it in yourself. And this is not where you belong. There is someplace else you're supposed to be. A lot of us are in a season where we know we're supposed to be over there, but we don't know how to get there. And God is sending messengers to help, whether it's through teachers, whether it's through, He's actually sending people to help you along the way that have the thing that you need, but He's sending people to you that are going to give you the answer in which you need, whether it's verbal answers or physically providing provision for you in that situation. So what the godmother did was she unconventionally turned the mice into the horsemen and carriage, the horses and the horsemen, the footmen, and turned the pumpkin into the carriage. When God provides you the answer to your prayer, it's not going to look like what you expect. It's not going to be what you expect. You're going to have to work with Him, just like she had to work with the pumpkin and the mice to turn them into 4 horses and 2 footmen, and then turning the pumpkin into a carriage. Sometimes you got to work with what you got to make it work into what you need. But she started with something that was already there. A lot of us have things that the Lord has given us that we don't quite see how that's going to work and be the provision in which we need. But see, the reason that it's not working is because that servant, that person, that thing, that what have you, has not arrived yet with the different viewpoint on that thing that we are carrying, and they put their understanding with their viewpoint upon what you already got and turn it into something magnificent. And it's not going to be the way you think. The fairy godmother didn't say, oh, let me go look in the stables and see if there's some horses over there. She said, I see you have mice. Let me turn them into. Sometimes you have something and you got to turn that thing you got into something worth it. So, with that being said, as the story goes on, she creates her dress, she puts her in the carriage, and she's off to the ball. Meanwhile, at the ball, the stepmother is trying to finesse her daughters into position, but everybody has to wait their turn to get to dance with the prince, and the prince at this point is bored out of his mind. He's been through half of the women, and he still is not impressed. And his mother told him just before the ball started that day, she was saying that you're going to find the woman that you want to be with. He's saying, if I don't, and actually the assistant suggested this, if he doesn't, let him find the woman on his own. And he's like, I've been through half of these women, I'm not interested. Some of y'all, I'm be legit. Some of y'all, your God ordained spouse, he's dated everybody. He's dated everybody from every perspective, from every what have you. He done did it all. Did it all, slept with whoever he wanted to, did it all. Same thing in Esther with Xerxes and the harem. He done slept with all of the women in the harem. Half of them ain't got no brains, and none of them were of any interest. It's not what they wanted. It's nothing like what the man wants. The reason that Esther got the prince's attention, or the king's attention, is because she was different. The prince in Cinderella, he'd been through all of the women. He was looking for the breath of fresh air, the person that made his heart beat a little bit faster. You got a dang spouse, been through, seen it, done it all, bought the kitchen sink, slept with him, done did. He bored, he's tired, he's exhausted with these women. You are the one. And the reason you're the one is because you're different from all of them. You're the breath of fresh air. You're exactly what he's looking for to walk through the door. You're exactly what he needs. As you're exactly what he's desiring to come in contact with. Exactly. So, with that being said, where am I at? She finally arrives to the ball. When Cinderella arrives at the ball, I had to write this down because it was so intriguing how it was stated. When she arrives, she gets out the carriage and her fairy godmother is standing there, and she's like, okay, I'm going in. And she turns and her fairy godmother says, this is as far as I can take you. She was like, wait, what do you mean this is as far as you can take me? I've gotten you this far. You have to do the rest. God has gotten a lot of us to the point of our promise, to the point where we get to meet our Prince Charming, to the point we get to meet our God-ordained spouse, to the point where he's going to open the door for us to walk into the room and we're going to be able to wow them. But he's not going to go in there with you. He is with you. Don't get me wrong. He's observing, but he's not going to be speaking. He's not going to be saying anything. He's going to watch you take all that you've learned and do. She told her, I got you to the ball. The rest is on you. It's like the famous saying goes, that, what's the saying? Your character has to keep you in that room. So they'll do everything, you can do everything to get to the room, but your character has to keep you in there once you get there. She has to carry that room. Esther, when the prince or king chose her, has to walk in that royalty, has to walk in that position, has to walk in that. And she must know herself and her own identity enough to know she can walk in that room. She does have the ability to stand in that position. So, when Cinderella walks into the ball, the prince sees her, and forget it for everybody else, because it's like literally the way that they depicted it in the film. You saw nobody else in that room but her. They literally empty the rest of the cast out of the room as he is seeing her on the stairwell. There's no one else there to show his perspective of the second she walked in. It was like no one else was there. Some of y'all, your God ordained spouse, when he sees you, I've heard many a men say this. When I saw her, I knew she was my wife. They've been waiting on you. She gave him a breath of fresh air that he didn't know he needed in that moment. And she walked down the stairs and came right up to him, and they spoke and began to dance. The same song that they sang in the beginning of the film. 10 minutes ago, I saw you. And the euphoria of first falling in love. The moment in which the king in Esther meets Esther and she becomes his wife and they have the coronation. Think of this as Cinderella's coronation. Okay? She's brought in as the queen, and the only thing Xerxes can see is Esther. His only intrigue is Esther. His only desire is Esther. No one else matters. Nothing else matters. Just Esther. To the prince, no one else mattered but Cinderella. To the king spent so much time with Esther that a woman goes through 28 days of no cycle. Her cycle is on for 1 week. The king would spend 2 weeks with her, and then he would engage her a few times throughout the other days of the month. From what I've heard in relation to the way that it's been studied, that the amount of time in which he spent with Esther in relation to the other women in the harem, she was his top woman. That's the one he wanted, and that's the one he spent time with. Just her. He was in love with her. Now, they danced. They danced their way outside. With that dance, her siblings are stalking. The stepmother was stalking. Who's this woman? Where's she come from? Pause. God is about to elevate you so publicly that when he elevates you, people are going to be looking just because they're like, where did you come from? Who are you? We thought we had this in the bag. Pause. I'm actually going to step out this entire story because I was watching TV the other day. Was it the other day? Yeah, I think it was yesterday. Sherry Shepherd was talking about when the movie Girls Trip came out. And she got the opportunity to get a role in the movie Girls Trip. She did her exercise. She got her body right. She got her hair right. She did everything. She auditioned for the role. She's waiting for somebody to get in contact with her in relation to the part. One day she finally sits down and calls the director of the film and says, what's going on? I'm waiting to find out when's the film going to start and so on and so forth. And they say, sorry, we didn't choose you. They ended up choosing Tiffany Haddish to be the main character, one of the main characters for the film, the role in which she was going for. And she was like, This is why I'm talking about this. She said Tiffany Haddish was the perfect person to play that role. Why? Because when a particular position, role, or what have you is for you, can't nobody be in that spot but you. Mic drop. A lot of women in this season, we're waiting on our God-ordained spouses. We're biting our nails. What if they're dating somebody? Some of y'all are stalking their Instagram. Some of y'all is... Come on now. Grow up. Stop it. Some of y'all on their Facebook page. Some of y'all biting your nails. Some of y'all, you know who the person is. Some of y'all, just when you see them out on the street and they still ain't said nothing to you, y'all sit there be like, why ain't he said something yet? You see him interacting with another female and you having a heart attack. Let's be big little women here. To quote Janet Jackson in Why Did I Get Married? Let's be big little women. Okay? The spot's yours. Let them talk. Let them entertain. Let them. The spot's yours. The spot's yours. So, they're observing. They're angry because they're like, who it is? Where she come from? We don't know who is this? And he look like he actually interested. Oh my God. And he was like, and I don't quite remember what he said, but he was sitting there and he said, I was so bored up until this point, until you walked into this party. I was waiting for somebody exactly like you. And she's sitting there, she's coy, she's shy, she doesn't really even know what to say. And she actually quotes something her stepmother said. Was it stepmother or was it the godmother? I'm not sure. And he's just enamored with her. And they sit there and they talk. And then he finally has the opportunity to kiss her. And he does. But as they kiss, the clock strikes 12. And she comes to the realization at 12:01, her costume is about to change back into the rags that she was wearing. So she has to get out of there. So she runs off and takes off out the door. By the time she reaches the bottom of the stairs, she drops her shoe and the dress disappears. She returns back unto what she was wearing prior, and she has to take off and run. She ran all the way back to her cottage house. I am so shocked that she still had breath when she got back, because she had to run and beat them back. Because I don't know how much longer the party was after and how much longer they stayed at the party and before they headed back. So she's cleaning up and her stepmother is like, what did you do all night? She said, I was here. I was cleaning. I was reading a book, you know. Her stepmother don't believe it. And she was doing real good until they were expressing how the party was, which was a lie. They were saying, oh, it was wonderful, and we danced with the prince, and he loved us, and he entertained us half the night, and and all this type of stuff. Lying. Lies they tell. And she was like, really? And she began to express what actually happened with her. This is the problem. When you get the opportunity to get your blessings, you can't be running around telling everybody that you got your blessings. You can't even innuendo that you got your blessings. You just got to let the blessings speak for itself. And she started to express in a song exactly what she experienced. And everybody was like, hey, it was exactly like that. How you know? And her stepmother was like, wait, excuse me? How did you know? And the second that she bowed, the same way she bowed that night at the actual ball, her stepmother knew it was her. And she made everybody go upstairs and put more chores on Cinderella, and then turned to Cinderella and told her, you are never going to be anything else but common. When a spot's for you, it's for you. All I got to say. So as the story goes, she runs outside and starts to pray again, because she starts to speak to her father. When Esther got to a point that Mordecai brought to her the decision in which she needed to make, and she had to pray, that is exactly what this moment is like. Her coming to the Lord and praying to the Father for direction in the decision. The godmother comes out and says, did your father really want you to live like this? And she's like, no, but what else can I do? She's like, go live your life. And she's like, but how can I live my life if this is my life? He's not going to want me like that. How do you know that? Is what she tells her. She's fighting against the two realities. Her true identity, which is the princess in which she got to fully see herself as, and the identity of the reality in which she lives in. A lot of us are in that in-between place, where we are between the place in which God is trying to take us and us stepping into the fullness of our reality, and the reality that we are stuck in right now. They don't look nothing like where God is showing us we're supposed to be. He's building our character to be able to stand in that identity, but our life does not look anything like it in this season. Okay? So, with that being said, the prince goes insane and says, look, I got her shoe. Go, we got to find out who this shoe belongs to. So they scour the entire city, county, country, what have you, trying to find the person that shoe belonged to. And they end up finally at the stepmother's house. And everyone tries on the shoe. Not one foot in that house fits that shoe. Now, if you look at the cartoon version of this film, the stepmother figured it out and locked her up in the attic. And the mice had to find a way to get the key from the stepmother's pocket and go all the way back up the steps and bring her the key so that she could get out of the room. In this version, she just locked her in the kitchen unknowingly. Sometimes your enemies are trying to lock you, block you, and delay you with something that has an appearance of your freedom. You don't know that you're being blocked or delayed, but they're desperately afraid that you're going to get found out, because they know that if you get found, all their schemes, all their plans, all their what? Nothing. Now, they tried to put on her shoes, did not work. Even the mother sat down and put on the shoe, and it took about 5 seconds before she started screaming in pain because it did not fit her foot. None of these women that are standing in spots next to your God-ordained spouse, they can't walk a mile in your shoes. Not for 5 seconds, not for 10 seconds. They can't walk a mile in your shoes. Some of them can't even step in them and move. It is what it is. So, he's like, is anybody else here? And they're like, no, there's nobody else. We went to every other place. It's like, are you sure there's nobody else here? And they're like, no. And they go to block the door, which in themselves, they told on themselves by going to block the door. And they're like, open the door. Open the door, and she's not in the kitchen. Some of y'all need to stay exactly where you are. I know it's hard. You're trying to stand still, and it's uncomfortable. Stay right where you are, because guess what? Your prince is coming directly to you. I've seen 3 or 4 different words. The answer's coming to you. He is coming to you. It's on its way to you. Don't you move position. It's on its route to you. But if you get and step out of position, she stepped out the kitchen and they looked all over the kitchen. She wasn't in there. But what's for you is for you. He turned and looked outside and saw her doing something in relation to the horses outside. She had taken something outside. And that's when he saw her. Sometimes you gotta allow the man to stretch. He gonna need to stretch a little bit. If you ever see the movie Last Holiday, LL Cool J had to travel all the way to Germany, I think it was, to get to Queen Latifah's character. And he had to walk in the snow. He had to go through all of this to get to her. Your Prince Charming will go through hell and high water to get to you. If he's the one, he gonna go through it all, and he gonna come directly to where you are. So the prince meets her at the door, and they interact with one another, and she realizes you're the same guy. He puts the shoe on her foot, and it perfectly fits. They have themselves a moment. She kisses him, and the fairy godmother switches her outfit from the rags she had on to the wedding garments. Some of y'all are about to get married so fast your head's going to spin. It's going to be, I found you, justice of the peace, let's go, courthouse, Vegas. I don't care. They gonna be ready to roll. The carriage takes them out, and they are gone to the castle. The siblings are jealous, and the siblings get directly to the gate and cannot go in to witness the wedding that is transpiring at that moment. Some of your family members, they're going to be able to, some are going to sit at the table, but some of them are going to have to watch from TVs and all kind of other stuff as the Lord appoints you to where you're supposed to be. Ain't going to be able to be anywhere near it, but they're going to be able to watch. So this is what I have to say. I hope this blessed you. And anything else I'm going to